Welcome to the Rapport Advantage Podcast, transforming the way leaders communicate. Here's your host, Alex Swire-Clark.
Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show, everybody, because, yes, antibiotics are your friend.
Hi, Alex.
Hey, Liz, how are you today?
I am much better due to the antibiotics.
Hey, there we go. They actually work, so we'll take that.
Oh.
All right. So I'm going to see if I can get my sound effect buttons working here today. Indeed, they're back. That's right.
Yes.
Indeed, we are
You
back.
found the iPad.
I found the missing iPad that was stolen by small children. So when you finally find it, and it was in your child's bed, and they were supposed to be listening to audiobooks, but they were actually playing on some little app.
Busted.
That's right. You got busted, kid. Give it that iPad back. So we are back. Thanks for listening to the Rapport Advantage podcast. We're excited to have you with us today. If you haven't listened to our podcast before, we are here to help you break down the walls of miscommunication, increase your emotional intelligence, and build better relationships in the workplace and beyond. Alex Swire-Clark here with you, CEO, speaker, certified human behavior expert, and
Liz Parker, certified behavioral analyst, strategic growth consultant, job benchmarking whiz, and Vistage chair in Greenville, South Carolina.
Vistage chair, strategic consultant. I mean, how many hats do you have, Liz?
Well, more than 4, but I like to keep it to 4 now.
Yes, because if we wear too many hats, then we get hat head.
That's right.
And that's a
right.
whole other show.
And you're headed off to see a Vistage group tomorrow or Wednesday.
I will be. I will be in Charleston, South Carolina, meeting with 2 Vistage groups. So excited about that and sharing all of our emotional intelligence insights with them and giving them some practical tips and knowledge for taking that back to their workplaces, building some better relationships, both personally and professionally. So we are fired up about that.
Excellent.
Our disc thought of the day comes to you via the screen, a famous movie quote. Well, not maybe famous, but if you're in the genre of films that I like to watch, it's quite popular. Mind what you have learned. Save you it can.
That's got to be a Star Wars quote because you said it's one of your favorites.
It is
and
indeed.
I did see it, but let me think who would have said that. Save you it can. That seemed like a robot.
It does seem like the syntax of the sentence is out of order. There's a famous Star Wars person who is known to speak.
Yes, what the heck? The little guy, the little wisdom man. Yes. What is his name? I can't think of it.
Remember you must, yes.
I know. He always reminds me of Gollum.
Yes.
Gollum's a little bit different. He loves to sit precious.
Oh, I can't think of his name, but you know who I'm talking about. I just described him.
Yes, the little green dude with a stick. That's Yoda. That's right.
Yoda.
Yes,
Oh
Master
my
Yoda.
gosh.
Master Yoda. So mind what you have learned, save you it can. So what disc personality style is he either speaking from or to, Liz? I'll give you the choice.
Let's see. I would think he's a wisdom guy, and being the wisdom guy, Andy's very methodical. He's got to be an S, doesn't he? Is he an S? But if it's a direct command, save you it can, mind what you've learned. He's telling you something that could be a D.
I think either of those is good. I think also if you're thinking about C, because you said methodical, which I'm really down with, and so his process
Then it's a C.
of well, if you go back and remember the movie when Luke comes there, he goes, he's too old to begin the training, so he was sticking to his rules about not letting Luke start, and then he goes, I'm not afraid. Luke says, I'm not afraid. Oh, you will be. You will be. So,
And so the funny thing is, this is the original that I saw in the 70s.
yes, 80s.
Really
technically. Yeah, because this
80s.
is from Empire Strikes Back, but yes, in the 80s. Very good. Very good. So, nice job, Liz. Very good. So, some,
Thank you.
well done. Well done. All right. So, our Just Thought of the Day leads into our main show topic for the day, which is part 3 in our 4-part series of the 10 best ways to lead the different styles. And today's style we're looking at are our high S's. So our caring, kind, wonderfully patient people that are super loyal and always fun and friendly. Well, not necessarily fun, but always friendly.
Just like Alex,
aw.
because he's an S.
Yay, I'm a big S. So a big S, not a big
S.
Yes. Yeah. Well. Moving on. So, looking at our first 5 pieces of the puzzle, we're talking about environmental needs. So, the first 10 will broken down into 5, and that's the 5 environmental needs that a high S requires for them to be led successfully. And the first one is, number 1, an area of specialization. So what do we mean by that? Well, an area of specialization refers to, from a workplace standpoint, giving them a sense of direction and guidance on what's going to put them in position to be successful from the standpoint of what do you want them to do. So I want you to come in and I want you to stack those papers. Okay, well, that's great, but how do you want them stacked? Do I need to alphabetize them? Do you want them color-coded? Where do you want them in sets of 10? Do you need them collated? Should they be stapled or paper clipped? So when you haven't given them enough information, they haven't specialized the input to be able to be successful, because they're going to have a lot of questions and coming back because, of course, S's are all about that security. They're all about that wanting to make the other people feel good about what they've done. So in terms of that specialization, give them enough information. They're not going to be one of those who says, okay, I want you to stack those papers, and then they take it upon themselves to stack them the way they want to, the way that makes sense to them. They need that structure within the set of directions.
That's great. That's great. And number 2, if we look at our list, is identification with a group. So as we think about this, they are the ultimate team player. So they want to be part of the team. They want to be involved with a group. They want to be able to be affiliative, and they have that camaraderie. So they want to support each other. They want to be there to help the other people succeed. They will always take a back seat, but they want to make sure they help the group succeed. So that identification with the group is super important. Do you have an experience with that, Alex?
I do personally. From a teamwork perspective, if you look at activities that folks enjoy, I'm a big board gamer, and there are so many different kinds of board games out there. There's the standard things that you remember from your childhood, like Monopoly or Bonkers or Parcheesi or whatever. It's just you against the rest of the players on the board, and you're trying to tactically outwit and strategize and things like that. But then over the last 6 or 7 years, there have been cooperative games that have come out where it's everyone around the table's on the same team, and they're all competing with each other to beat the game, whatever that objective happens to be. Whether it means gathering up artifacts and escaping the island before it drowns, or whether that be curing diseases that are across the world before they take over and there are too many epidemics and everyone's going to die. So from that particular standpoint, S's love those kinds of games because the pressure isn't necessarily on them to perform at their maximum capacity, but they can contribute in maybe smaller, more subtle ways to the team's overall objective, and then they can share in the win and share in the victory.
Cool.
Yeah.
So let's take number 3. Why don't you take that one?
Yeah. So number 3 is they like and need an established work pattern. So from that standpoint, Liz has mentioned it before, when you're talking about their desks or their routines, they are so routine driven and routine oriented. Don't take their pens from them and move them from the left side of the desk to the right side of the desk, because that's just going to freak them out. What happened to my pens? Hey, who moved that over here? Cleaning lady, you're in trouble. So, they are definitely all about having the same thing to do from a task standpoint. Oddly enough, they like to have that same pattern. So from 9 to 9:30, they're going to be doing this, and 9:30 to 10:30, they're going to be doing this. They're going to take their break from 10:30 to 10:45, and there's going to be a cyclical pattern that they're going to have every day. And if they have that, that gives them a sense of security because they know what to expect. And if you change that on them and just say, "Oh yeah, we're having a meeting in 10 minutes," they crash their car. I mean, they're out in the parking lot. They're having a panic attack because we've interrupted that sameness in that routine. So, from that perspective, S's really like to have the same old, that status quo. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And so, if they've got a procedure or process that they use, make sure they're continuing to use that. And if you're going to change it, A, give them enough warning, and B, give them the reasons behind that so they can buy in.
And I think that leads us right into number 4, which is stability within a given situation, because that routine and that established work pattern really gives them that safety, that security, and that stability they're looking for. My husband's a high S, and when you see how he sets up his daily routine. I'm one, I don't want a routine. I don't want to be in the same place every day and do the same things every day. So when you see somebody who does, and I'm an impulsive person, so if I go to throw off his pattern, oh my goodness, it just makes him crazy. So that stability is really key because that gives him that safety and security to know what time of day it is, what's got to happen next so that he knows where he is in his day.
That whole status quo again, making sure there's just a lot of sameness in their lives. That S-A-M-E as opposed to S-A-N-E. So that sameness, that vanilla ice cream, it was good yesterday. It's going to be good tomorrow. It's going to be good 10 years from now. I know it. I can pretty much go into any restaurant and order the vanilla ice cream, and it's going to be good. So
that explains why he eats the same snacks all the time.
That's right. Because, you don't want to, don't necessarily want to go out there and try those new things because, I've got something that works. And again, personally for me, there's a Mexican restaurant around here that we go to, and I'll get different things on the menu from time to time, but there's this one thing that I get. It's called a burro de la roqueta, and I get that the same every single time. Chicken, no onions, no pico, rice and beans, and so I'll get that every time just from, not because I'm consistent like a C would be, but just because there's safety in it. And then when I go to another restaurant, from the Mexican point of view, I'll be looking for something very similar to that because I've had good history with that before, and it'll be very similar to what I've done. So that's typically a California burrito in most restaurants because it's the fajita chicken versus the boiled and shredded chicken that you'll get.
So that's the stability you're talking about.
That's correct. So I'm wanting to have the same thing and the same kind of experience where nothing's going to be unexpected. Nothing's going to hit my palate. Oh, what was that? That was not what I wanted. So would you like me to take that back?
No,
I don't. I'll eat it. I will eat it. And so, my wife is saying, they'll take it back for you. They'll make you something. No, I'm good. I'm good. So, yes.
Oh, take us to number 5, mister.
Indeed. Consistency and a consistent familiar environment. So they like to have that same, if they're in a cubicle space, if they're in an office space, if they're a work from home person, they like to have that familiar environment. And one particular example I can think of right off the top of my head is when I work from home, I'm in my home office, the blinds are always closed because, normally I'm not wanting people to kind of see in or whatever else and things like that. So my wife, who also will work from home when she's on her lunch break, she'll come up here and say, hey, how's your day been? And the first thing she does is pull open all of the blinds. I'm like, why are you doing that? She goes, well, don't you want some light here? I said, every time you come in here, it's the same way. So then you start getting the light and the glare, and it's in my eyes and that kind of thing. So we like to have that consistent familiar environment from the lighting to where our desk is located to the pens we use to the apparatus that we use from our email systems or whatever else. If we've been in another office before, we like to have those same types of tools when we move to another company or whatever. Well, do you guys use Gmail? Oh, you don't use Gmail? Oh, that's going to be a struggle. So, because they've had the experience using that before and they know it works, so they don't want to make that change.
Well, and I do have to say that I know this, and it still doesn't stop me from moving the furniture. My husband goes to work. I change the furniture. He comes home and he's like, what happened? But I have a need too. So I try to leave his room alone and I take over the rest of the house.
Yeah. So Dan, what do you think about the new changes? No.
It does take him some time. If I tell him I'm going to change the furniture, then I at least can anticipate it by the time he comes home, and it does help.
That's right. Give him a heads up. Give them that time to be able to internalize, and then they can react more favorably. So
yes. So thank you.
Excellent. Now we move on to the last 5, which is our 10 best ways to lead high S styles, and from the perspective of they respond best to a leader who ... And again, 6 on the list is a leader who is relaxed and amiable. So someone who's not going to be in your face all the time, that kind of thing. More of a pleasant, easy, down to earth, not afraid to have a conversation behind closed doors in a nice, calm, relaxed scenario. Not someone who's going to be overly all the time like a high I would be. Don't ask me to repeat what I just did, but just relaxed, calm, and likable from the standpoint of they're easily approachable and someone who that S person can relate to and feel confident going into knowing that they're not going to chop their head off if they have a question, comment, or concern.
And I'm just dying to do number 7 because responding best to a leader who allows time to adjust to a change in plans. We just talked about that with the furniture. So, think about it as an employer. If you have high S's working for you, make sure that you do kind of tell them up front what's coming down the pike, what's happening. Even if you don't have definite plans, if you can tell them a little bit of what's happening, it does allow them that time to adjust to the change that's going to happen. So it's really important as a leader to remember that. You'll get a lot more productivity.
I refer to this in a lot of my talks about when you're talking about change. A high D is like a speedboat. So they're out there on the water. Oh, we need to make a change. Okay. And they're almost 90 degrees and they're just turning and they're gone. And S is kind of like a cruise ship or maybe like the Titanic. So you got to make those subtle turns. It's going to take them a while to eventually. Okay, now we're 90 degrees from where we were. So there's not going to be any quick transitions there. So when you're talking about change, D's, change like a speedboat. I's, pretty flexible as well. C's are going to be more like a submarine. They're going to have to think about it and, analyze and give them the facts before they can make that change and buy in. S's, they're going to be slow. Just know it going in.
Yeah, that's a great example.
Number 8 on the list, responding to a leader who serves as a friend. And we talked about that earlier in terms of being approachable, but serving as a friend, and oftentimes if you're an older person in a leadership role and you've got younger folks, they're going to look to you more as a mentor than necessarily a friend. But just that relationship of sharing ideas and information, sharing feelings. S's are all about the feelings and the emotional side of things. So don't be afraid to be a little bit more open, be a little bit vulnerable with them. You'll make those connections with S's very much, and you get a much, much better response than just trying to give them facts all the time.
That's good. And number 9, you respond best to a leader who allows people to work at their own pace. And this one I see on a daily basis with my husband as well. We were just building a pavilion out of a shed, renovating it. And I'm telling you what, I work at a much faster pace. And he works very much in the same type of what we talked about, that routine, and allowing him, if I just leave him alone, he actually will tend to be a happier worker because I'm coming in and I'm trying to keep changing his pace. So I just drive him nuts. I own it.
Well, and again, as an S myself, you can get on the horn and that's not making me go any faster. So I'm just going to keep on booking it down the road. So as a leader, we have to find alternative ways to help guide them along. There's not a push or a pull that's going to get them to move too much terribly faster. So just make sure that the S knows your expectations, especially dates and deadlines for projects and things like that, and they'll get them done. They'll pace themselves accordingly, and that's the key point.
Ooh, that is one more reminder too, because what I have learned through the years, any of you that are married to an S, keep this in mind. When I used to travel quite a lot, I would leave a list of what I needed to have done by the time I came home. And so that way he had a list he could work from, and I didn't have to check with him every single night about what he got done because he didn't like to do it that way. He would do it right before I walked in the door. So if I came home 30 minutes early, it was deep trouble. I had to wait and just say, by the time I get home, can you just do these things? And usually he was much happier about it. So
yes, if you're trying to get them to schedule out the day for an S, you're going to get it's going to be a panic attack, and they're not know what to do themselves. Just give them a chance to do it their way. And again, they're great at finishing things, but just in their own time. It might not be necessarily on your timeline. So give them the end goal, the end date with clear instructions, and you're going to find out that you're going to have some winning team members or winning relationships in that way.
Boy, you take 10 because that works perfectly into it.
Oh, dear. So number 10, clearly define goals and means of reaching them. So from the S perspective, we're not, I say we typically aren't the big picture thinkers. We're typically not the go-getters like a D is, but we are workers and we will get things done and we will accomplish great things, but we have to know what the goal is. So if you say, okay, I want all the clothes clean. Okay, well, is that the kids' clothes or the adult clothes? And is that the cold loads or the warm loads? And are we sorting those or are we leaving them on the floor for the kids to sort? And are we using fabric softener or are we not using fabric softener? And so all of those little details, which are typically C types of things, S's need as well for them to be able to accomplish the goals that they need to accomplish, but they have to know what it is that you want from them. They're willing to work, help you, support you, do everything they can, but without detail, they're not ones who are going to be making decisions on their own because they want to make sure that they are pleasing to the person who's asked them to do whatever the task was. So from that perspective, they want to have as much information as they can to make you happy. So you want to have them make you happy, so give them what they need to make that a reality.
And I always think of, with S's in particular, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but I always think I have to tell them the hows. If you keep in mind that how you want it done, how you want to do this, that's a good way to know that you can give them the information they're looking for.
That's a terrific point, Liz. And if you go back to our earlier podcast 2, What is DISC and what it's all about, we talk about those 4 big questions that each style asks. D's are about the what, the I's are about the who, the S's are about the how, and the C's are about the why. So excellent point, Liz, about the how factor, and that is what they're all about. How do you want this done? How should it go? How's this going to affect me? How's this going to affect our team? All those things are about the how. So super.
Thank you.
Cool.
And I did that so the listeners could go back and listen to that in case they hadn't heard it.
Yes.
Nice plug for episode number 2. So our highest rated episode actually is episode 2. Very good. All right. Well, that's going to do it for today's show on our high S's. I'd like to thank Liz for joining me today. Liz, how can folks get in touch with you?
They can email me at liz@ltresults.com or visit my website at ltresults.com.
Awesome. To get in touch with me, you can visit at just kidding.
Alex.
Just go to the rapportadvantage.com. You can go to contact at alexswire-clark.com as well. If you go to our website, you can click on the Rapport Store tab if you're interested in having a personality picture of your entire team or just for you. The assessments take about 10 to 15 minutes. That link will take you right to our store. Also, if you're interested in scheduling a free 15-minute coaching session with me to help you improve a relationship either personally or professionally, be happy to do that. Just go and fill out the contact form or shoot me an email. On our next podcast, we'll finish up our 4-part series and take a look at the 10 best ways to lead high C styles. So
Yay!
That will be exciting. We'll get into the details, which is what the C's are all about. Thanks so much for listening. We will see you next time and take care. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Rapport Advantage podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Join the conversation on Facebook at the Rapport Advantage and follow us on Twitter at Rapport Podcast.